Hi there.
Hi.
I'm sorry, I have children looking in the window.
Who's missing? 1, 2.
There we go.
I'm a former public school teacher.
I was homeschooled all the way growing up. Addie was homeschooled all the way.
I was brought up in a public school.
I have 4 children, ages, well, they're all about to have birthdays or have had birthdays.
I know what that's like, that initial pulling the children out of school or having them in your lap all of a sudden. It's tricky.
Don't think you got to take the public school system and bring it home. You can tailor it for the dynamics of your family.
And it doesn't have to look like everyone else, including other homeschoolers, you know?
They do math facts on the trampoline. They sit in beanbags to do their reading.
One child who's learning how to tie shoes and another kid who's simply just learning how to have kind words and not hit their brother.
I've really focused on instilling in them like just responsibility and diligence.
One of my daughters was the youngest professional photographer in the city of Austin.
Last year, we wound up getting into gymnastics. So McKinley's a level 3, AJ's a level 4.
We'll see what he says. You can, hopefully it'll be good.
I like history. It's kind of cool to see stuff that happened a long time ago, like dinosaurs.
Our first field trip was to Southeast Missouri to go see the full eclipse that came.
My friends tease me that all of our vacations are educational, but my kids love it. They don't know the difference.
Brielle is really musically inclined. She kind of starts her day playing piano, she ends her day playing piano, and she sneaks in piano whenever she can.
Yeah.
We have a budget. I know how to find bacon on sale now.
We were on a walk and we saw this frog and we ended up taking it home and feeding it flies and learned about frog books from the library.
And if I can spark joy in what they're doing, it's going to work so much better than if I'm just forcing.
We have that freedom to have God as the centerpiece of our home and our school.
Today we did watercolors.
This is my favorite one. It says, put your faith in God.
My son, he's got pretty severe autism, and we were having a hard time with handwriting. And so I just took an empty writing pad and had him write a bunch of Star Wars words. And he was super pumped about that.
No one is going to be as committed to your child as you are.
Our family has grown by leaps and bounds ever since we started homeschool. We haven't looked back. We were like, yeah, we made the right choice.
You'll make it. You'll get through it. And I can tell you in hindsight, you're going to be so glad that you did.
I'm confident it's going to work because I know that there are the resources available.
If there's anything that makes homeschool parents different, it's simply that they raised their hand and they said, yes, we will take full responsibility for our kids' education.
We are homeschoolers.
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 I am a homeschool mom.
We're owners.
We are homeschoolers.
Welcome everyone to the 2020 Texas Homeschool Coalition Virtual Gala and Fundraiser. I'm Travis Herzog, ABC 13 Chief Meteorologist in Houston. I'm a proud 4th-generation Texan and an even prouder supporter of homeschool families. I'll be your virtual host for the evening. We want to say a special welcome to tonight's sponsors and all of you watching. Whether you're at home or gathering together with friends at a watch party across the state, we truly hope you will enjoy learning more about THSC and how you can be a part in keeping Texas families free. Tonight we have an incredible opportunity to generously support THSC, and while we may not be in person, we have made it very easy for you to be a part of the movement and contribute. Anytime throughout the evening, you can text GIVE to 772-360-1447 or go online to thsc.org/gala to donate as well as be a part of our live auction. There are some incredible packages for the whole family that you do not want to miss out on, like hunting trips, field trips, date nights, and more. Bidding closes at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time tonight. We have an opportunity to donate generously and bid aggressively. And we want to know, how are you watching tonight's gala? Are you home alone? Are you at a watch party with friends? We invite you to post your photos on social media and tell us you're tuned in by using the hashtag THSC Gala. Friends, we have some incredible things in store for you tonight. Special guests, entertainment, and powerful testimonies. So stay tuned with us. Right now, I want to introduce you to THSC's President and Executive Director, Tim Lambert and Stephanie Lambert, who are honored to welcome you.
Good evening. I'm Tim Lambert, and I'm the President of the Texas Homeschool Coalition. And this is my daughter, Stephanie, our Executive Director.
We are thrilled to welcome you to an evening of encouragement and inspiration as we look back at what God has done, and we look forward to the great work that He is doing today in Texas and across the country for families and for His kingdom.
The Texas Homeschool Coalition is a group of thousands of members and supporters who believe that raising children is a family's God-given right and calling. We believe in empowering parents to raise and educate the next generation of leaders, and we believe that homeschooling is one of the best models for doing just that.
As we all know, 2020 has been a year of unforeseen trials and losses and sufferings. But we serve a mighty God who is still at work, and tonight we celebrate that we are undaunted because we believe in the great work that is happening in the souls of men and in the hearts of the families of our communities.
The members, supporters, staff, and volunteers of THSC are focusing all our efforts on supporting the hundreds of thousands of families who are doing what God has called them to do. This is a watershed moment for our state and for our country. We're at a turning point, and the families of Texas and the nation are rising to the challenge.
We're proud of our freedom in Texas. Here, parents, not the government, are free to decide what's best for their own kids, including the choice to homeschool. Texas is arguably the best place in the nation to homeschool, but has it always been this way? Let's get the facts. Throughout history, homeschooling was the norm. As recently as 1915, 90% of all school-age kids were homeschooled or in private school. But by 1981, the Texas Education Agency banned homeschooling. Parents were facing fines and even jail time for homeschooling their kids. This became so extreme that by 1985, 150 Texas families had been prosecuted just for teaching their kids. So in 1985, homeschoolers responded by suing every school district in Texas in what became known as the Leaper case. For 9 years, homeschoolers fought the state in court until in 1994, when the Texas Supreme Court ruled in favor of homeschooling. That same year, the U.S. Congress considered a bill which would have effectively outlawed homeschooling nationwide. THSC led the Texas response by shutting down the Capitol switchboards and ultimately killing the bill. But even after these huge wins for homeschool families, homeschoolers continued to be harassed. By law, school districts were only responsible to ensure kids were being educated. Instead, they abused their authority and imposed regulations on homeschoolers. Local officials demanded interviews, approved and denied curriculum, and wielded power over parents brave enough to buck the system. In 1995, THSC President Tim Lambert intervened on behalf of homeschoolers with the Texas Education Agency. The agency requested a solution from THSC, who drafted a plan that would offer Texas homeschool families unrivaled freedom in the nation. This policy was instated and is still in place today. After nearly 2 decades of persecution, Texas families finally got relief. Liberty was won. Since then, THSC has vigilantly fought to protect and expand freedom for Texas families. But do these liberties actually impact your family? You might be surprised. THSC helped pass Parent Taught Driver's Ed in 1995 so that Texas parents could teach their own kids how to drive. In 2001, THSC expanded freedom by passing a law to allow homeschoolers to take dual credit classes. In 2003, THSC helped the legislature stop state colleges from discriminating against homeschool graduates. That same year, THSC compelled CPS to stop using homeschooling against families in their investigations. In 2006, THSC became fed up with the outrageous actions of Child Protective Services and trained over 100 lawyers free of charge in how to defend families from CPS in court. This training continues even today. In 2009, THSC led the fight to veto a bill that dangerously expanded CPS's power to attack families and remove children without cause. Governor Perry responded and killed the bill. THSC recognized the need for more boots on the ground during the legislative session and launched the THSC Watchman program, teams of homeschool graduates who serve to protect and advance freedoms for Texas families. In 2011, THSC raised $250,000 to defend a father's right to keep and homeschool his daughter. That dad and all Texas families won in a landslide jury verdict. In 2013, THSC was the deciding factor in killing a bill which would have allowed doctors to sentence sick children to death over the objections of their parents. In 2015, THSC helped pass a bill, again standing up for homeschoolers facing discrimination in the state college admission process. THSC also passed a requirement for Child Protective Services to allow foster parents to homeschool. In 2015, THSC sounded the alarm, calling on Governor Abbott to veto a bill allowing hospitals to detain minors without a warrant, even against the parents' wishes. The governor got the message and vetoed the bill. On top of these monumental victories, battles for freedom are also being won one family at a time. THSC successfully intervenes with CPS, school districts, colleges, government agencies, and others on behalf of member families every year. The incredible opportunities and freedoms homeschool families enjoy today were bought by the vigilance of those who have gone before. So now it's our turn. Our hard-earned freedom will either be protected or lost. As was wisely stated in 1866, no man's life, liberty, or property are safe while the legislature is in session. After decades of success, Texas homeschool families have stood with THSC defending and expanding our freedom. Will you join with THSC today and help keep Texas families free?
Isn't that incredible? 2 decades of sacrifice for us to have the freedom that we enjoy today. Why were the pioneers of the homeschool movement so dedicated to securing the liberty for parents to teach their own kids? Did you know that public education was not widely available or utilized throughout history until the last century? As recently as 105 years ago, in 1915, only 10 to 20% of all students attended public schools. The rest were largely homeschooled. Our forefathers were homeschooled. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Alexander Hamilton. Our heroes of the past were homeschooled. Winston Churchill, Davy Crockett, Isaac Newton. Fast forward to 1980, homeschooling in America was virtually unheard of. But by 2018, the National Education Agency reported that a rising 3% of all students in the US were now being homeschooled. Today, however, 2020 has brought unprecedented change to the world, to our country, and to the homeschool community. Who would have thought last year that today in America, people would be standing in line to buy essentials, that business owners would be required to close their doors, that information online and in social media would be censored. This year, the world has been faced with significant trials and tragedies, but we've also experienced great goodness. I've seen families taking walks together and reconnecting with each other. People are placing teddy bears in their windows for neighborhood kids to enjoy. There's a renewed appreciation for so much that we previously took for granted. We can thank God for all of these things. But you know what else? With the schools being shut down, parents in America got the opportunity to assess and experience for themselves their own children's education. Now, while 70% of parents in one survey complained that teaching their own children was harder than their full-time jobs, even so, 40 to 60% of parents surveyed said that they were more likely to pursue homeschooling or virtual school options after the shutdowns. So from 3% last year to a potential 40 to 60% this year, that's staggering. Homeschooling is on the rise. Today, more parents than we could ever have imagined are taking ownership of their own kids' education. But what difference does it make? Well, I think it makes a lot of difference for the future of our country. Studies show that the academic performance of homeschool students is 15 to 30 percentile points higher than their public school peers on standardized tests. They also show that adults who were homeschooled are more likely to be involved in their communities, to vote and attend public meetings, to attend and succeed at college, and even to internalize the values and beliefs of their parents. THSC is undaunted by all the chaos because God is at work. This new wave of parents needs support. I am proud to say that THSC members and donors have rallied. Homeschool moms who started in 2018 and 2019 are the seasoned professionals of today. Our team has helped 1,500% more families withdraw from public school in 1 month this year over last year. We launched nationwide support offering free curriculum and support to families across the country through coronavirushomeschooling.com. And our homeschool coaches have supported an average of 840 families every week this summer who are looking for help as they take the homeschool bull by the horns. While the future of our country is heavy on each of our hearts, we will remain undaunted. We will look for the good. We will recognize the great work God is doing. Together, we will support and strengthen the parents across Texas and across the nation. Parents are educating and raising up the next generation to become the principled and moral leaders our country so desperately needs.
Heartbeats only happen one at a time, one at a time. You can't rush a moment, so don't even try, don't even try. There's a symphony you're missing. If you only listen, you'll find big magic in the mundane, the big picture in a small frame. Everything is sacred when you take time to notice. Big love happens in the small moments. Big love happens in the small moments. Big magic in the mundane, the big picture in a small frame. Everything is sacred when you take time to notice the big magic in the mundane, the big picture in a small frame. Everything is sacred when you take time to notice. Big love happens in the small moments. Big love happens in the small moments.
Hi, Dan Patrick. Proud to be your Lieutenant Governor. You know, I've had a chance to speak live at almost all of your events since I was first elected to the Senate. It's always been a pleasure, and I always like to remind folks, because new folks join the Homeschool Coalition every year. Parents come on board. In fact, more this year than ever. So many parents teaching their kids at home, including my daughter, who is taken up to homeschooling now with her 5 and 6-year-old. But back in 2006, when I was running for the Texas Senate, I didn't have anyone who wanted me to be there. I mean, you know, I was the outsider. I was the grassroots guy before there was a Tea Party or a big grassroots movement. And there was one group, homeschool parents, and you all were the first and have continued to be my supporters. And when I ran for Lieutenant Governor, standing there with me. And so I'm very grateful for that. I might not be here today without your help back there in 2005 and 2006. But I just believe that we should create opportunities for parents to teach their children as they should and as they believe is right. And I actually think with so much virtual education in these days, and parents helping their kids at home, even if they're in the public school system, that more and more people are going to be turning to homeschooling for many reasons. So your coalition is more important than ever. And I would reach out to your friends who want to be homeschool parents and help them if they're looking for some answers on how they can teach their kids at home, their values. And that's very important. If you look around this country, if there's one thing we're lacking, and that's family values. And I know that's what you teach your kids every day. The homeschool kids, when they come up to lobby at the Capitol, I will tell you they're the best lobbyists there ever we have. Tremendous young men and women. And so I'm proud of what you do as parents. I know it's a big sacrifice for you. Some of you could be working another job and making more money, but you're teaching. And some of you both of you work and you still teach. I don't know how you do it, but you're doing the right thing for your children. You're doing the right thing for Texas and the right thing for America. So thank you. God bless you. And let's see how the rest of this year goes. I'll be glad when 2020 is behind us, and I'm sure you will too. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Dobson, and I just heard that you're having a gala event tonight, and so I decided to crash the party. You didn't invite me, but here I am, like it or not. So I ripped off my mask, and I found a camera, because if Nancy Pelosi can do it, so can I. I just want you to know how much I love and appreciate Tim Lambert and the Texas Homeschools Coalition. They're doing an absolutely wonderful work. And I hear the number of homeschooling families in some states is through the roof. So enjoy the celebration, even if it is virtual. And Tim, if you're in Colorado, do come by and see us at James Dobson Family Institute.
Thank you, Dr. Dobson. Are you all enjoying yourselves? Have you checked out that online auction yet? It's not too late, and you don't want to miss out. As we've already seen earlier tonight, not only is THSC supporting families and family rights in their journey of homeschooling with resources, but they have already achieved landmark legal, legislative, and policy successes that allow those families to do so. Here to share more about the political action THSC accomplishes is the Director of Policy, Jeremy Newman.
There are some moments that we look back on as being watershed moments for our culture. These are pivotal points in time where major decisions are made and where the culture kind of stops and then takes a collective breath and sets off in a direction that was totally unforeseen. I think that this moment is one of those moments. I think we're going to look back in hindsight on 2020 as being a watershed moment when families, communities, and cultures faced enormous obstacles and responded by charting a bold new course that was totally unanticipated. This year has been full of unforeseen calamities, but we believe that God is about to do an incredible work in our culture that none of us could have ever manufactured ourselves, and so we are undaunted. One particular event in the spring of 2020 perfectly illustrates two major battles taking place in our culture for the soul of the American family. Harvard University announced a special summit designed to erect plans for the regulation of homeschooling and family rights in America. The event was invitation only and was organized by a group of ivory tower academics, two of whom were especially noteworthy. The first was Professor Elizabeth Bartholet, who's infamous for her strong anti-homeschool stances and her recommendation that there be a presumptive ban placed on homeschooling nationwide. The second was Professor James Dwyer, who's infamous for his claims that children actually literally belong to the state and that parents should only have as many parental duties as the state deigns to confer on them. These two philosophies represented by these academics took place for the soul of the American family in 2020. Harvard University's participation in the event underscored how Elizabeth Bartholet has essentially mainstreamed the erroneous idea that homeschooling is a dangerous practice reserved for radical right-wing religious families who exercise tyrannical control over helpless children. The data on the success of homeschooling is clear. Decades of widely available data demonstrate that Professor Bartholet's radical claims about homeschooling fall somewhere between academic negligence at best and professional malfeasance at worst. Nevertheless, Harvard University helped to mainstream her crusade against homeschooling. In Texas, the philosophy of Professor James Dwyer that children are owned by the state and rented out to parents at the whim of the government came to life in the most significant legal battle for family rights in Texas history. Christopher Clay, a father who everyone agreed was a fit parent who raised his daughter well, was taken to court by a completely unrelated man who attempted to take partial custody of Chris's daughter, Anne. This unrelated man, who was briefly engaged to Anne's mother before her mother died in a tragic car accident, had spent less than 6 months with Anne during her entire life. Even so, he argued that because he felt like a parent, that he had just as much right to custody of Anne as Chris, Anne's actual father. The potential ramifications for Texas families if Chris lost his case were enormous. Nannies, live-in boyfriends, students renting a room in a house, or anyone who happened to live a relatively short amount of time with a child and felt like a parent could suddenly receive the legal right to take that child from the child's actual parents. 2020 has showcased quite a few high-profile battles in our culture, but when it comes to the right of Texas families to raise their children, these two were by far the largest. Even so, we are undaunted because we trusted that God had a plan and we just had to continue the work that He had called us to do, supporting families. Mere weeks after Elizabeth Bartholet's crusade against homeschooling went mainstream, God turned the United States into a country of homeschoolers. Bartholet's accusations against the character of homeschool families suddenly became personal to tens of millions of families nationwide. Simultaneously, God uniquely positioned us to launch a national media campaign in partnership with tonight's special guest speaker, Sam Sorbo, in order to promote homeschooling. With homeschooling suddenly becoming the hottest topic in America, in the space of just a few weeks, we engaged in over 100 interviews nationwide, showcasing homeschooling to an audience of millions of people. Professor Bartholet in Harvard mainstreamed the idea that homeschooling should be presumptively banned, but God mainstreamed homeschooling. As Chris Clay's case went to the Texas Supreme Court, it raised serious questions about whether families had the right to raise their children at all. Or as Professor Dwyer envisioned, if those children were the mere property of the state who were deposited temporarily with parents only until the state could decide that another home was preferable. It was the most important parental rights case in Texas history. THSC joined the case as an amicus, filing a brief with the court and helping to recruit lawmakers and other organizations to defend Chris and Ann, and launching a national media campaign at letherstay.com to keep Chris and Ann together and to raise awareness of the case. The case was a pivotal moment for family rights in Texas. God responded by bringing together a unanimous decision from the Texas Supreme Court upholding the right of parents and families to raise their children. The court reiterated specifically that it rejected, and I quote, any notion that a child is the mere creature of the state. The court held instead that parents have the right and the high duty to raise their children. The decision represents the most significant parental rights victory before the Texas Supreme Court in history. Professor Dwyer and Harvard mainstreamed the idea that children are the property of the state. So God reestablished parents as having the right and the high duty to raise their children. We believe that God uses families to raise up godly children so that He can use children to raise up a godly culture. In 2020, battles for the heart and soul of American families were mainstreamed. We are undaunted because we believe that this is a watershed moment that God is using to transform American families in order to transform American culture.
Thank you, Jeremy. Each year, the Texas Homeschool Coalition honors state leaders for their achievements in the work of keeping Texas families free. And this year, we are privileged to honor State Senator Bob Hall. Senator Hall is one of those rare elected officials who not only says he believes in the family, but demonstrates so by his actions. The Pardo case last year, that horrific case with CPS that took a child away from their family without due process and without evidence, was in Bob Hall's district. Senator Hall was in court every day that family was there in court, and he battled with the agency and showed himself to be a defender of the family, not just in word, but also in deed. So we are privileged to honor tonight Senator Hall with the Defender of Freedom Award.
Well, good evening, everyone. Tim, Jeremy, and all the rest of the folks of the Texas Homeschool Coalition's 25th Gala. Gee, I wish we were doing this live. You know, it's just so much more fun to be with folks that think alike, that have the principles and values of the Texas Homeschool Coalition, who are looking after the most precious thing that we have out there, our children. You know, I've often told people that the education of our children is one of the most important responsibilities that we adults have. And I'm just honored and blessed to have been picked this session with this great Defender of Freedom Award that you guys decided to give me for the work with the Pardo family. That was a work of love. And I have no doubt they're a great family that was here in my district that desperately needed help. And you guys at the Texas Homeschool Coalition, you led the way. You stepped up and took this issue up, and I stepped in and helped you work on it. And thank goodness we were successful in it. But I have no doubt that we have many other legislators Had this been in their district, they would have stepped up and done the same thing. But I'm just glad that it worked out the way it did. And I hope that it was a message that we sent to CPS that they need to change the way they do things, because that was what happened to the Pardo family just should not happen to any family at all. And so I just thank you guys so much, and Tim and Jeremy and all the people with Homeschool Coalition, and keep up the good work. You guys are doing fantastic work and truly producing some kids that are well educated. So I thank you for what you do, and God bless you guys. God bless you, and God bless Texas.
I sure hope you're having a great time tonight. It's about to get even better. We have the pleasure of watching some incredible talent. He is 17 years old and was the 2019 Grandmaster Champion. Playing the fiddle from Granbury, Texas, please welcome Ridge Roberts. Wow, that was incredible. Thank you, Ridge, for sharing your talents with us. I'm so thrilled I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker tonight. She's primarily recognized for her talent on camera. She's an actress, filmmaker, radio host, international model and author, but most importantly, a wife, mother, and also a homeschool advocate and educational activist. As Jeremy mentioned, she helped launch coronavirushomeschooling.com with THSC this spring, and we are so thrilled to hear from her tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Sorbo.
Hi there. They say that to handle public speaking, the speaker ought to picture everybody in their underwear. COVID gives this a whole new meaning. Thanks so much for joining me. Tonight I hope to share a few stories, some good news, and then give you some solutions to some of the challenges that we're facing these days. But first, a story from the book of Daniel. Despite King Nebuchadnezzar's prohibiting it, Daniel got down on his knee every day, 3 times every day, and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had always done. The king's resentful advisors saw their opportunity, and they told the king he needed to punish Daniel. This news distressed the king greatly, but he gave the order to throw Daniel into the lion's den, saying, "May your God whom you serve continually rescue you." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. The king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation might not be changed. At the first light of dawn, the concerned king hurried to the lion's den. He called to Daniel in an anguished voice, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God been able to rescue you from the lions' mouths?" So Daniel answered him, "God's angel shut the mouths of the lions because I was found innocent in his sight." He shut their mouths. God shut the lions' mouths. We all know this is a pivotal biblical story from the book of Daniel, but sometimes I think we lose sight of why. When Christ was laid in the tomb, his followers were despondent, bewildered, forsaken, and adrift. For 3 days they mourned. They had bet on Jesus, and they'd lost everything. And then what happened? He rose again. I know that many of us feel that same kind of hopelessness and discouragement now. It seems like the world has gone haywire with COVID and its ramifications. An enigmatic, silent, deadly killer in our midst, and the draconian policies of government drunk on its own power, and a populace eager to obey. The dangers of extremists rioting and looting and flaunting destruction for the common good. The understanding that those individuals were educated into their beliefs and against our nation. The upside-down nature of the world these days. But I come with a hopeful message for you all, because without the tomb, Jesus would have never arisen. Without the lions, God's providence and power would have gone unnoticed. Without COVID, we would never have appreciated to the full extent the abject perversion in our education system, the lions in the playground, so to speak. But now, people are finally waking up, and we can help them. Through tribulation, God brings revival. And make no mistake, there is no revival, revivification, rebirth, resuscitation, without a sort of death. So, tonight I'd like to make the case to you that while COVID may seem like a death sentence for our communities and our nation, it is providing an unexpected opportunity. You see, America is in dire need of a cultural and spiritual revival. How do I know this? Well, there's the Harvard University professor attacking homeschooling parents, even though Harvard actively recruits those offspring. There's the Philadelphia public school teacher, Matthew Kay, who openly lamented on Twitter about parents listening in on his classes. "What does this do for our equity inclusion work?" he said. And he continued, "How many of us have installed some version of what happens here stays here?" And then he said, "Conservative parents are my chief concern. If we are engaged in the messy work of destabilizing a kid's racism or homophobia or transphobia," indoctrinating them is more like it, "how much do we want their classmates' parents piling on?" Piling on? And by the way, of course, other teachers chimed in, lamenting their loss of privacy with their students. What do they need to be so private about? One teacher wanted to share information in a, quote, parentless way. Another offered that parents are dangerous. She's right. Some of us are. that simply the idea of parental oversight distresses teachers has shone a light on their controlling anti-family attitudes. These are dark days for students in public schools. Finally, COVID has revealed the hidden agendas, the manipulative methodology in our public education system. And at the same time, families are being encouraged. Homeschooling is lauded by our political leadership. Gavin Newsom, the progressive governor of California, and no friend to home educators, actually encouraged parents to homeschool, while teachers' unions are striking to keep school doors shut. Wait a minute. I'm on the same side as the teachers' unions and the progressives? Will wonders never cease? Honestly, if you don't think that God has a hand in all of this, well, you don't know my God. Right now, America and the entire world are undergoing serious economic, cultural, and spiritual tribulations. Part of this is the tremendous upheaval that we're seeing in our education system. While the educators scramble to conform to the new paradigm, parents have been saddled with more responsibility than they ever expected. We believe this is by design. God is using education at home and the homeschool community to help bring an enormous revival in families and in our community. We also believe we are about to see the most pivotal moment in homeschool history, and that it will fundamentally change America and American families for the better. Back at the beginning of the COVID lockdown, I began recording videos. My goal was to come alongside parents who were suddenly thrust into the new role of lead educator to encourage and instruct them on their journey. I was quick to joke that, like in my wildest dreams, we had become an entire nation of accidental homeschoolers. But, that wasn't exactly right, because in reality, parents just became more involved enforcers and babysitters, waiting to be instructed by the institutions under duress. We've all been taught to do what we're told to do, right? This COVID homeschooling, this wasn't really homeschooling the way we homeschoolers understand it, anyway. And so, your very own Texas Homeschool Coalition came onto the scene to give parents a glimpse into what home education could be. It was a Herculean effort. It helped a great number of people, and it inspired a lot of families. And this fall, there's a new window of opportunity. Because for many, the blinders are off. They see behind the curtain. The truth is laid bare. Parents are seeing what's going on in the schools better than they ever have before, and they're balking at it. Whether it's for mask and social distancing policies, or the health risks, or finally, the educational content, we predict that millions of parents are choosing to fully home educate this fall. Anything is better than that, they reason, and they're right. This is a miracle. God is busy redeeming families and shutting the mouths of the lions who run the schools. And that gives us further opportunity to help these families make the choice to preserve the God-ordained structure of the culture, to shepherd and mentor their children. God sometimes is like a bull in a china shop. When he wants to see change, he told Noah to build the ark, although there wasn't a cloud in the sky. So Noah worked diligently and achieved the salvation of humankind from a God weary of our iniquities. God didn't prevent Daniel from being thrown into the lion's dens, but he did shut their mouths for a righteous man's salvation. So let's follow the examples of Noah and Daniel. Let's build our arks let's continue to pray and anticipate God's blessings. For God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. So please join us as we prepare for rain to support the enormous influx of families into homeschooling and into God's calling to raise a generation of children who love Him. Texas Homeschool Coalition needs your support now more than ever, because there are so many people who are turning this way, and they can use your support. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great evening.
2020 has been a historic time for the world and our country. It's been a time of uncertainty and challenge to families across Texas and for the Texas Homeschool Coalition as well. We canceled 2 conferences, slashed our budgets, and pivoted to the work of encouraging families who had not planned to teach their children at home to do so. In fact, those efforts have only accelerated. It's also been a time of seeing the hand of God at work, as we have seen an unprecedented interest in homeschooling. As Stephanie shared, some polls have shown that as many as 40 to 60% of families in some school districts considered not returning their children to public schools. And as Jeremy mentioned, the law professor who believes that homeschooling should be presumptively banned said this: "Some parents have discovered that public schools are worse than they thought and have been surprised at how little their kids have been learning. Many of those families who were forced to homeschool in the spring have decided to continue because it was a great experience for their family." By God's grace, we focused our efforts this year on developing and implementing resources to enable our team to help families who were suddenly homeschooling last spring and the historic numbers who are choosing to begin or continue to homeschool this fall. It's been amazing to see what God is doing. We are undaunted because we know that God is in control, and we see His hand in using this time of crisis and uncertainty to bring many who never thought they could homeschool to the realization that they could do it. As our website says, you can homeschool, we can help. And we are helping thousands of people in Texas and across the country experience the joy of teaching their children at home. Even opponents of homeschooling acknowledge the number of families who are teaching their children at home could double. And of course, their response is to push the state governments to regulate and restrict the ability of families to homeschool. They say this: legislators and other policymakers may look at that and say, wow, now this is a big phenomenon. It may continue to grow. Of course, it shouldn't be just this lawless world out there with no rules and regulations and oversight. Of course, this should be part of our overall regulated educational system. That response is part of the mindset that we see all too often, that the government knows better than parents what is best for their children. Indeed, much of the battle we face today is defending the right of parents to make decisions for their children. In fact, this spring, as Jeremy mentioned, we filed a brief in a case at the Texas Supreme Court to defend a father from a judge's ruling that forced him to share the custody of his 4-year-old daughter with an unrelated man. In a unanimous decision, the Texas Supreme Court ruled that decisions that a fit parent makes for his or her child must be considered by the courts to be in the best interest of that child in a case against a non-parent. That was perhaps the most important decision for children and families in Texas in history. So we'll continue to work to give families and children the opportunity to homeschool and also defend the right of parents to make the decisions for their children in spite of opposition in our culture that is so prevalent today. Our calling and commitment is to enable families to raise their children as they see fit. We do our work so that families might do their work. As we have seen this year, times are often uncertain and challenges arise, and sometimes direction changes, but we know that God is in control, and we pledge by His grace to continue to enable families to raise their children as they see fit. God uses people like you to enable us to work out this calling and to help families, and when necessary, to defend them from overreaching government. Would you consider helping us tonight by making the most generous gift you can to THSC? You can make a tax-deductible donation to THSC Inc., our 501c3 educational organization. You can help us in litigation and legislative work by making a non-tax-deductible gift to THSC Association. And you can help us in our efforts to elect candidates by making a non-tax-deductible donation to the THSC PAC. You can do this online at thsc.org/donate or text GIVE to 772-360-1447. Another way you can help is to become a member of the Texas Homeschool Coalition and join the thousands of families who band together with us to help each other in keeping Texas families free.
The sum of every high and every low. Remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know. Ooh, you say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong
Thank you, Aurora. That was beautiful. What an amazing night. I truly hope you have enjoyed yourselves as much as I have. Thank you for joining us as we celebrated the Texas Homeschool Coalition and all that God has done and is doing through this organization. A couple of things I want to remind you. You can still donate online by visiting thsc.org/gala, or you can text GIVE to 772-360-1447 and donate straight from your phone. And you still have some time left to bid on the live auction before it closes at 9 p.m. tonight, so don't miss out. Bid aggressively and donate generously. Supporting THSC truly is why we're here tonight. If you are watching with friends and fellow homeschool families, we invite you to become a member of THSC and join the community. You'll receive some incredible resources to help you in your journey, and you can find out more at thsc.org. Finally, I want to thank you for allowing me to be your virtual host. It's been a pleasure to spend the evening with you. Thank you, and have a good night.